Hi, I am here with Max Harrison, whose modern and enthralling approach to directing has meant he has worked with some incredible projects in brilliant places, such as the Edinburgh Fringe, East 17, the Southwark Playhouse, and of course, Lidless Theatre, who have done a major UK revival of the Philip Ridley play, Leaves of Glass, and is coming straight from its success at Park Theatre to our very own Hope Mill Theatre from the 3rd to the 8th of July. So we're very excited about this one. Thank you for joining us, Max.
Yeah, no worries. My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
It's had incredible reviews so far. It's being described as enthralling, intense, thought-provoking, fascinating, and the way that it kind of messes with your memories, perceptions of memories, it kind of like makes your head kind of explode. So what can you tell us about Leaves of Glass?
Yeah, well, it's kind of good what you say about it messing with your head. I mean, a lot of the play is like that, and it's structured by Phil, the writer, very particularly in that way. So the events, I don't want to spoil anything for people that want to come and watch, but basically the events take place over 9 months, and they look at one family, two brothers, one older, one younger, one kind of with his life pretty good and on track. He runs his own business, he's got a wife, they're thinking about starting a family, and then his younger brother is the opposite. He's an alcoholic, he's dropped out of school, art school, he's kind of very all over the place. So it follows their relationship, and then you've got the older brother's wife and the mother of these two boys, and yeah, it messes with your head because there's 18 scenes in all, and they just jump time. So that, you know, between the first and the third, there might be like the first and the second, there might just be like 2 weeks, and you're playing catch up constantly with what's happened between the scenes. You know, big shifts happen in their lives, kind of sometimes quite big events happen off stage, as it were, and then the characters hurtle on in these scenes. We often pick up like halfway through a conversation, and you're left and two characters will have a totally different version of some event that happened off stage, and you're constantly playing catch up as an audience, and trying to figure out who to believe, who to side with. And you know, a lot of people come out and they're constantly arguing in the bar, like who do they believe, what version of event do they believe. And so it's really interesting. Each audience member will have a bit of a different version probably that they think is true.
And where does that leave you as a director then? Because obviously you've got these actors who, for them to do their job, they obviously think that their character is the one who has remembered things correctly. But obviously, as a director, as you're watching this, do you kind of keep shifting like your own perception of actually maybe yeah, that I really believe them, or is it kind of the truth lies in the middle of all of it somewhere?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I sometimes, I guess what does shift is my sympathy, often when I watch it, especially because the way that I work, and that we've worked on this with the actors, and the way that I was taught was to allow space for the play to change every night. So things aren't set necessarily. The lines are, and you know, people know their characters really well, but what happens is really set and quite disciplined, but how that happens is totally free. So if one actor changes the way they deliver a line one night, and another actor will just have to pick up on that. You know, if one actor bursts into tears one night, they'll have to deal with that differently than if they're shouting the line at them. You know, so constantly what does shift is my sympathy with different characters on different nights. You know, who I sort of feel for, and as to who I believe, I've tried to keep that, like you say, as much in this middle area as possible. So like you quite rightly say, all of the characters believe their point of view. I mean, that's how memory works, isn't it? You know, you can argue with your family member about what happened on one holiday when you were younger, you know, and what have you, in fact, Casey, who plays the mum, was saying this, that her and her sister talk about this holiday they had in Wales, and her sister remembers it really sunny, gorgeous, beautiful weather, and really fun holiday. And Casey was like, it rained the whole week, we argued, you know. And neither of them is lying, you know, and it's not that one of them thinks they're just going to deliberately twist the truth and the other is correct. It's sort of both believe it to be true, and yeah, that's what a lot of the play looks at, is what happens when two people really believe a different set of events.
It's so interesting. It's such a brilliant idea. And I think it also, obviously, it's about remembering events, but it also looks at how, again, without giving too much away, but it looks at how the same thing can have happened to two people, yet the way that they respond and react to that can be completely different. And you've kind of touched on the fact there that Stephen and his brother are two completely separate people. So is that something that you kind of had to explore as well, that we can all have the same thing happen to us, but the way that we kind of got what we do with that can be completely different?
Yeah, totally. And just to clarify for your listeners, Stephen's the kind of older brother that I was talking about earlier. So thanks for bringing in the names. Appreciate it. So Stephen's got his life on track, and Barry seems to have seems to have gone off the rails a bit. And there, it's no spoiler to say that, that they have a mother, but their father isn't in the picture. Basically, he's not in, and you find out what happens to him in the course of the play. And they've both dealt with that very differently, like you say. So yeah, it's a lot about how we deal with trauma and how things, adversity or difficulty affects us in life. And I sometimes think trauma can be a bit of an alienating word. People think, oh, that's something people else have. But all I mean when I say the word in this context is real difficulty, which we all encounter, real difficulty, particularly in families, often in relationships. You just have to live for a few years and you'll encounter real difficulty at some point, won't you? And then the question isn't if you'll encounter the difficulty, like you say in your question, it's how do you respond to that? And fundamentally, all the characters kind of want the same thing. They want the family to work. That's what's at the center of this play. Some plays look at religion, some look at politics. This play really hones in on family life and family and what it is to be in a family. And in a way, all four of the characters want the family to work. They just have totally different methods to get it to work. They and those methods clash, and they're not always good ideas, and some of them make the situation worse. But for the actors, it's just about how do I play that and how do I get under the skin of that. And yeah, always it's to, for one of them, they try and disrupt a lot. They try and force people to look. They try and break the mold in order to get the family to work. Others try and conceal and hide. Others try and move on and be very practical. Others try and build a life, like quite materially, like a house and things like that. So yeah, it's just all these different ways of how to move away from difficulty and trauma and create this kind of family that functions somehow.
and like you say, because we're all dealing with things in different ways and we all have different outlooks and things, I guess, does this fit beautifully with like the way that you like to direct, which is the process orientated rehearsal? Because you kind of, you've got to listen to all these different ideas and you've got to bring them all in, because it is about how each person responds differently. So has it been a perfect sort of marriage between the play and your process? But also for people who might not know, can you just tell us a little bit about what the process orientated rehearsal is?
Yeah, of course. It has been a marriage, mainly because this way of working kind of works best. I mean, it works in whatever play you work at, but it thrives on those kind of like character driven things. So less to do with the fact that people have different perceptions, but more to do with the fact that it's just heavily character focused, the play. It's not, it's not about big grand moving sets, it's quite stripped back. So yeah, it's a good marriage in that respect. And the way that we work is, I was trained by a guy called Mike Alfreds, who's like quite a legendary theatre director, who I've got a lot of respect for, and I was lucky enough to be mentored by him over lockdown. So I just have the utmost respect for him, and a lot of what I've learned is from him. And this way of working, it basically says that you can't, even try as you might, you can't keep it the same every night. So it would take me a whole interview to explain it, but I'll try and do it in a nutshell. the fact about theatre that it has that isn't that compared to film is that it's live. Okay, like film will get changed in the edit by the editor, and we'll see what the director and the editor end up wanting us to see, and it's fixed. You know, it's sort of, you can watch a film 70 times and it'll stay, it's just the same film. But what theatre has is aliveness. You know, it's two people, they go out in front of an audience, and yeah, they know their lines, they know their characters and their relationship, but they don't know what the other person is going to give them. Even if those two people tried really hard to keep it the same every night and move to the same places and delivered the lines the same way, there would finally be some human variation in it. You know, there would, because you're changing as a person all the time, and the way that you came to the theatre and what happened before would affect you. If the audience laugh or are silent, that will affect you. So there's all these factors that will mean that you cannot keep it the same. And so the idea with this way of working is, well, why not lean into that, you know? Because then, instead of seeing like a reheated version of what we found worked in rehearsals, you know, oh my God, it really works when you shout that line, and then if you really pause there and then everyone's silent for a second and then someone cries and then you move on, you know, in rehearsal that might have happened, and it could have been extreme. And the reason it would have been good in rehearsal is because it was fresh and new, and the actors weren't expecting it, so it took them by surprise. And it's the immediacy of that and the spontaneity of that we love in rehearsals. And then we want to say to ourselves, okay, let's take that, bottle it, and just reproduce it. And of course, as soon as you do that and you just reproduce it, all that happens is that people, it just goes stale. It's like a microwaved meal, or, you know, you cook a meal, it's really fresh, and then you just you microwave it 6 or 7 times and it just loses its flavor and its vitality. So this way of working just says, okay, that really worked in rehearsal, now let that go and see what happens fresh this time in front of an audience, because then the audience finally will be watching that freshness and that spontaneity and that life between you, rather than all the good ideas you had in rehearsal, basically.
That's brilliant. And I loved the way, you made it really clear, particularly when you said, like with a film, you're seeing what a director or an editor wants you to see. Whereas this way, that's a really good explanation. Thank you. And you've mentioned, like, it is character based, so there's no fancy set or anything like that. And I know a venue is always important when choosing your show, but obviously you've come from the Park Theatre, which is a small studio, to our glorious Hope Mill Theatre, which is an intimate venue again. So was it more important than ever to find that venue that can kind of almost show that kind of claustrophobic family thing going on?
Yeah, it really was. The sort of intimacy is really important, you know, because people have to, they have to be able to see the minutiae of what's going on for the actors, because they're doing such amazing, detailed, nuanced work. Some of it is quite strong and, you know, quite vibrant, but it's always nuanced. So, yeah, that is really important. And also what's important is to do it in the round, because we're actually changing the Hope Mill for people that have been there a lot. It's normally just like end on, isn't it? So we've got this new configuration where it's in the round, which is what we had at the Park. And what that does, I mean, we didn't really expect it, but there's a lot of imagery of like people getting, there's a feel to the play that has quite a lot of momentum, and you feel it sort of swirling around the central character, and it touches on depression and things like that in the play. I don't want to give it a bad rap. It's not a depressing play. No. It's very exciting and vibrant, but it touches on that. And these characters are constantly trying to move away from getting sort of sucked down this dark depression. And so they do all these like quite energetic things. So that thing of it being in the round sort of feels like they're swirling around this. Yeah. Phil, the writer, called it this kind of black heart that the play has, you know. So it really works. And funnily enough, we went to a studio in Guildford for a part of our tour called the Yvonne Arnaud. And we couldn't put it in the round in there. So we did do it end on, and it worked, you know, it gave it a lot, but it changed so much, you know, it sort of, it felt like the actors had to decide to open it to the audience and share it with them, which was fine. But when it's in the round, it really feels like you're just looking into their living room. It
Yes.
feels very kind of voyeuristic and very immediate, and almost like you shouldn't be watching. It feels a bit like too real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really glad we're at the Hope Mill.
And obviously, this is by Lidless Theatre, where you are the director. So tell us a little bit more about Lidless, like the kind of work they do and why this play. What attracted you to this particular play?
Yeah. So Lidless is a company run by me, Kit Hinchcliffe, and Zoe Weldon, who's the producer and the designer. And we do a mix of plays and workshops. So we do actor workshops in the week in London, and then we do plays and producing program. And this play came out of a prior relationship between me and Phil. So we've worked together on two projects already, two of his plays, and after the second one that we did a couple of years ago called Tender Napalm at the King's Head, we were just talking through ideas, and there was a couple of plays of his that I'd had on my mind for a while, and so he sent me them through, and I read them all, and this one really spoke to me, because there's something, well, I kind of find it sometimes pointless to justify why I feel like a lot of directors have to say why it's relevant, and for me,
Yeah.
it is relevant, and I'll say why in a second. But finally, what I'm looking for is like a play that just grabs me, that on quite like a human level.
Yeah.
Phil described a couple of his plays, including this one, as acting as like an exorcism for the audience. You watch it and it exercises something from you, and you feel sort of taken by it and sort of rattled and thrown around and then purged at the end, and finally the bottom line is that's what I'm always looking for in plays, right? But this is particularly relevant because we live in a world where the truth and the past is being debated constantly. I mean, you only have to look at things like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard to hear like two totally different versions of the same set of circumstances, which I didn't follow the trial to the letter, but it seems like both of them at points are very genuine about what happened. It's they might be lying, but they also might totally be convinced about their point of view. You've got these two brothers in Will and Harry that are constantly, just re-narrating the same set of circumstances over the course of their childhood, and then you also have MPs saying, what is a party, what isn't a party, I don't remember their cake being there, all of these. So we just live in a world where that is totally up for grabs, and Phil wrote the play just after the Iraq war, and so a lot of that was in the back of his mind, sort of subconsciously, as he was writing it, which was again a time where Blair and people and Bush were saying we thought there were weapons, and and it's just like, what is true? It's so memory is such a slippery thing. Mm-hmm. It feels trivial sometimes just to talk about memory, but it's how we define ourselves, isn't it? It's how we make relationships in the future. How I remember that happened is how I'm gonna interact with that person in the future, and define what kind of life I want to live. So it's so important and so slippery. So yeah, it just felt really relevant politically.
It's brilliant. And I honestly, I cannot wait. Like I say, everything that you're saying has convinced me even more that I cannot wait to come and see it. Okay. But before we let you go, I just need to reference, obviously, that you are actually originally from this neck of the woods. You're from Bolton, aren't you?
Exactly.
Yeah. So does it feel really good to be bringing such an incredible play back home?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. You might not embarrassingly be able to tell until this point in the interview. From the Northwest, to my shame, my younger sister, who still lives in West Orton in Bolton, still takes the mick every time I come up, and just like, about my accent. But yeah, I'm originally from West Orton in Bolton, and And funnily enough, so is the stage manager. We went to the same high school, West Orton. Yeah, I got her on board because I'd worked with her at East 15, and we just realized that we'd both gone to West Orton High School. So anyway, that's just a small thing. But it feels really important to bring this back, or to bring work back home, basically. And I've never done it before as a director, so it feels like a real homecoming, and something really just really necessary for me and important to just to try and set some creative roots into the town that I'm from, or the area that I'm from. And I think regional theatre is brilliant. It's a real thriving industry. And at the same time, being in London, I think there's so many resources poured and money poured into the London theatre scene. And so for me, it feels really good to not only contribute to that, but really contribute to these other thriving areas, and we're really keen as a company to like make more and deeper connections with regional theatres around. So yeah, if there's any regional theatres listening in, then drop into our inboxes, because we're really keen just to make those connections, and because it's very easy just to be a London centric or London focused company, and it's really not what we want to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for choosing to come back here. We cannot wait. You can catch Leaves of Glass at the Hope Mill Theatre from the 3rd to the 8th of July. And judging by the buzz around this show and the reviews that it's already had, I would grab your tickets quick, because they are going to go like hotcakes. Thank you so much for chatting with us, Max. And we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Incredible. I'm still actually kind of shaking from it. Absolutely extraordinary.
I really, really enjoyed it.
It's really powerful.
Just incredible. One of the best things I've seen.
I'm honestly overwhelmed and feel really emotional.
It's really incredible.
I still feel quite sort of jangled in a good way.
It's kind of the thing that maybe you should sit with for like 10 minutes afterwards and kind of piece your brain back together.
Well, I thought it was electric. It had me literally on the edge of my seat.
It was funny,
complex,
Dark,
Gripping.
shocking,
edgy.
revelatory.
It was heartbreaking.
It was astonishing. Alive. It made me feel very alive.
the cast is exquisite.
I was just taken on a huge, massive journey, and I feel really moved and lucky to have seen it tonight.
Beautiful and devastating all in one.
So amazing to have a revival of this play. It's a very important play. It's very cool.
You've got these 4 incredible characters who are so well written and so well developed and so well performed by these incredible actors.
I would say book a ticket urgently.
Book it. Book it. Now, please, for the love of God, before it's too late, and see this amazing show.